So let's be honest, when it comes to global security, Africa is quietly becoming a proving ground, not just for weapons or war games. The ideology is also a proving ground. The surveillance is becoming a proving ground, and so is the influence. Whether it's the drones being flown out of Djibouti, whether it's naval ports near the Gulf of Guinea, or just ops in the Sahel, the continent is hosting more flags than a UN parade. But here's the kicker. In most of these spaces, we are not calling the shots in any form or manner, We're lending the land, providing the bodies, and inheriting the consequences. And we'll be getting onto that in just a bit. So today's conversation, it's about what happens when the battlefield is ours, but the blueprint isn't.
Now that's a paradox, isn't it? Africa is in every military brief, every strategy memo, every so-called stabilization plan. But when the dust settles, who really gets to define what secure looks like? I mean, we've got joint trainings with the US, with the UK, with France, with Turkey, you name it, Kenya, Niger, Djibouti, all hot zones for drills. But the real question is, are we building capacity, or are we just extras cast in someone else's mission?
Pawns to be moved around. Yeah, and if you listen to it carefully, more carefully, I mean, we can look at all the drills. They're all flashy. All the uniforms, fantastic. All the coordinated maneuvers, brilliant. But terrorism does not come in uniform, right?
And it thrives in silence, in poverty, in the places where governments show up with force, but not with food, with surveillance, but not with schools. So when we talk about terrorism in Africa, we've got to ask, is this really a military problem first, or is it a development problem with a military symptom?
And you don't actually even have to have a military background to see how things are basically, our everyday security could be actually compromised. Just walk into any mall, basically.
Or club.
Yeah.
Or a church.
Hallelujah.
The performance is loud. But what is the protocol?
Exactly. We have metal detectors, we have security ones, all those kind of things. We have sniffer dogs even, But half the time you're wondering, do these folks actually know what they're actually doing? They have the support, but do they actually know what they're looking for?
Yeah. I often ask, security by vibes. Flashlight, check. Uniform, check.
Yep.
Actual training? Not so sure.
And then you've got places like Holy Family Basilica, right? It's not a plug, it's just to say the way I'm looking at the way they do their security. So if you come into Holy Family Basilica by car, you have to disembark. Two things. If you have a passenger, you're going to go into the security check. If you're a driver, you'll come out, they'll check your car. But now what really got me was this sphere that you walk into, right? So you put your metal stuff on one side, you walk into this thing and it closes, whoop, and it will not let you out until it decides you're safe to proceed, right? It's not the best for time management in any form or manner, but at least it's being thorough.
I imagine mass starts at 1, but you get cleared at 1:07.
And you're the altar boy who was meant to be singing for that. Now, contrast that with air travel, right? Domestic or international, in any case, yeah? I have learned the hard way. These days, I travel with drawstring pants, right? Yep. Slip-on shoes.
Crocs.
Okay, or Crocs.
Yeah.
We're going to have another debate about potatoes and what have you. So, no bling, no nothing. Yeah, slip-on shoes. Basically, I do not want to pass. I don't want to get caught, going through airports. I want to pass through like I'm vapor.
Like you're flying, not flowing.
Well, the other way around. I
like
to flow.
You like to flow, actually.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not flying, but you're flowing.
Basically.
There you go.
And this basically, that whole aspect just goes to show you might have the hardware, but real security boils down to the systems, the habits, and the people.
That's why we had to call in someone who's lived this stuff from both the cockpit and the command room. Someone who doesn't know the theory, but the terrain. Spoiler alert, it's not just about planes or guns, it's about the pipeline. The pipeline from disenfranchisement to radicalization, and what governments do or don't do to stop it.
And let's pause to think about this for a minute. What makes a country secure? Is it how many jets they have, right? Or how many jobs they've created? Is it the intelligence we're sharing with Washington? Or just simple listening to a mother who knows there's something wrong with her child, boy or girl? Yeah.
Stay with us, because this one's layered, and it hits close to home. Today we talk with retired Colonel Seth Shava. He served in the Kenya Air Force for 31 years, a fighter pilot training with the US Air Force. He graduated in 1979. Fighter base commander attached to the UN New York headquarters as military desk officer in charge of peacekeeping for 2 years.
Graduate of US Air Force Fighter Weapons School, graduate of US Air Force Air Commander and Staff College, graduate Kenya National Defense College.
Today, we look into the history of joint military relations and speak about their present relevance in battling terrorism.
Karibu.
Sante.
Good to have you here, Colonel.
Thank you.
I often imagine what it would be like fighting fighter pilots.
I was going to ask, did you see any action?
Actually, like in the air, what are we talking about? Like
dogfighting, you know, like, yeah, Top Gun, yeah.
Is that real?
It is real.
Oh yeah.
Top Gun is real. The movie.
Yes, but did you
do
personally?
stuff like that?
Well, you get to do some are not real, but you simulate. But Top Gun, I am actually a Top Gun myself.
I know. That's why I was looking at that, because that title actually is yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what you get at the fighter weapons school.
Yeah.
When you're a top student, then you get the Top Gun trophy.
Tom Cruise, move over.
Tom Cruise was just a movie. Mine was real.
That was real, exactly.
Like you've heard, I joined the Air Force, my first job and last job, straight out of school.
Yeah.
Once a military man, always a military man.
That's right. And I was lucky enough to be selected amongst you to go for my pilot training in the U.S. That was in 1978. I was commissioned in 1978 and went to the U.S. for pilot training. Early 78 up to, I think, September, October 79 when I graduated and came back home as a second lieutenant, and then promoted to a lieutenant, posted in Nanyuki Air Base, where I started my fighter pilot career. I did my training on the F-5, which was a fighter aircraft at that time and still is up to today. And then in 1982, I was declared operational pilot on the F-5. This is just before the coup. Yeah. And then I was in that position as a fighter pilot for another 20-something years. I went on to be promoted to captain. I can't remember when. But attended other schools. I went to F5 instructor school, again in the US, in 1985. And then 1987, I came back home for a few months. Mm-hmm. And then 1987, I was sent right back to the US, where I did my fighter weapons.
Okay.
Instructor school. The fighter weapons instructor school is a cream of fighter pilots. After that, you can only go to space.
Space is not an option.
Anyway, so I stayed in the squadron as an instructor pilot, and then in 1994, I was then posted to the UN as a military desk officer in charge of operations. Initially, I went there as my mission. I was in charge of Liberia. No, not Liberia. I was in charge of Rwanda.
Okay.
Actually, I'm the one who closed down the Rwanda mission after the genocide.
Right.
Okay.
And then after closing the Rwanda mission, I took over Liberia and some other African missions. I think there were 5 or 4, including Lebanon, Liberia. No, Lebanon, Israel. Whilst I was still there, as I finished my duty in New York, I was promoted to lieutenant colonel and appointed commandant of the flying training school, Air Force Flying Training School, where I served for 4 years. In 2000, I was then promoted to full colonel and appointed base commander of Laikipia Air Base, which is a fighter base. I served there for 4 years, then came to Nairobi. I was initially at the Defense Staff College for about a year. Then I went to National Defense College, and after that I went to DoD in charge of procurement of systems, weapon systems, and then retired. Yeah.
Okay.
Weapon systems, the fun stuff.
For the Air Force.
Yeah,
Okay.
for the Air Force.
Yeah.
This is the thing.
There's a story that Shava needs to tell you, but we'll bring that in a bit later. Just want to jump into it now. So we're looking at the situation of basically, we're going to tackle the aspect of joint operations and impact on terrorism, but I'm going to start with the terrorism side, right? So as Kenya, I think we're doing fairly good job in terms of terrorist ranking or terrorist index ranking. Let's call that, right? But what do we need to do to avoid another Norfolk, another Westgate, another Dusit? And from this perspective, I'm talking about look at how technology has advanced right now? And then I suppose I can tie that in to ask, okay, fine, outside of the advancement of technology, how are these joint exercises that we currently have with the US and UK, how are those helping us in terms of ensuring that we do not get surprised again?
Terrorists, the only thing you can do terrorists is because they're not wearing a uniform or, they're not good figures, is you must listen. Yeah, and track individuals who are known, and basically have your ear out there, listening out to what people are saying. So listening, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR, is what you use.
Okay.
To stay ahead of them.
Okay.
And a lot of that is, there's an international global system for sharing information between allies. So if the Americans hear something, that sounds like it's going to happen in this region, they'll then inform you. We're hearing something about your place, and then you focus there. And internally, we have our own system, the anti-terror unit, which is looking for through the same means, looking for information.
Yeah.
And identifying possible, they're looking at, you identify areas where there's high potential for recruitment through radicalism and radicalization and all that. Here we know those places, so you use your intelligence services.
So obviously we know that the majority of these attempts are thwarted.
Maybe we never know. We don't know about them because they're not reported. They have been thwarted. Yeah.
I mean, there are nations whose policy is to not share that information because what it does is it alerts the terror, agents of terror rather, and probably gives them a leg up. So one would imagine that the few we see, though devastating in nature, are actually the ones that essentially made it through the cracks.
Yes.
With the experience that you have under your belt, and just looking at whether we're looking at the Horn of Africa, which, like you say, in a lot of cases, areas for radicalization, looking at places in northern parts of West Africa, northern Nigeria, Niger, parts of Burkina Faso, and places like this. When we look at that, do we see that there would then be joint efforts that are needed to counter terrorism, or do these come after the fact?
There is a big joint effort, not just in Africa. It's global. It is now, terrorism has been identified by the UN as a global issue. So therefore, even at the UN, they have center gathering information globally, and this information is available even on the internet. So they're sharing of information. But terror activities tend to be localized, so we don't expect a terror attack to come from the Sahel region to Kenya. Okay. So our focus will be with the known terror groups around here, Al-Shabaab, people close to us. They have their cells, and so we identify those cells and we focus on those groups. In the country, we know places where those radicalized activities take place. Okay. So you can assume that our people are in there listening. And they have got a template that helps them isolate would-be terrorists, starting from just behavior, individual behavior. If a guy goes off, starts behaving funny. Even a mother would call in and say, hey, this boy of mine now, I'm seeing some funny things here. He disappears. He's always on his phone. I don't know what he's talking about. When somebody approaches him, he goes off on his phone.
And then we see that in Kenya. I mean, there are quite a number of cases where mothers have complained. But there was mothers, communities coming together to say, hey, look, our boy's disappeared. Or he's come back. He has quite a lot of money.
So you look at all those aspects.
Okay. I want to pan out again, come back into the Africa. I mean, that's the localized example, and just want to look at it from a bigger perspective now. The multinational African forces that we've done in terms of joint forces, joint exercises. We've got Justified Accord, we've got African Land Forces Summit, African Lion, Obagame Express, Flintlock. April 2025. To what extent do these meetings and summits exercises help build joint military capacity between the U.S. and America? Sorry, U.S. and African forces. Yeah.
Okay. The reason for that is, first of all, you share information. And, the U.S. has got the largest assets in terms of collecting information. And then after that, you come and disseminate the information followed by, if we need to go into operations, how will we conduct our operations in a joint manner? So that's why you'll have those exercises.
Okay.
Yeah. So that to harmonize operations between the two forces in case, it has to happen.
Okay.
They also provide a lot of equipment. So they also train our troops in the use of those equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming also we have a vast, in terms of terrains, and because I'm assuming you don't fight in
Yes.
space. I mean, you're looking at the physical lay of the land and everything like that. I'm assuming then, plus we've got a nice climate for most of Africa and everything. So I'm assuming that's also part of the reason why we're the darlings for these joint operations.
Training in Kenya is a big thing for Europeans.
Yeah.
For instance, the British Army,
The batik.
the batik, has always trained in Kenya. But they train in different parts of the world because of exactly that, different environments.
Okay.
So they had trainings to, camps all over the world, mainly with their former colonies, in their former colonies. And Batuk was a small unit here, and they used to do training 3 months in a year. I think it was during the winter time. And the kind of terrain they were training in here was desert, mainly desert.
Okay.
They would go to the north, Siolo area and all that. And then at some point, when Afghanistan came, they had specialized forces going into Afghanistan who needed to ride camels in Afghanistan because the hilly areas, mode of transport was camels. So they started doing that here in Nanyuki. They'll come for their training on guys that will be on a camel.
Right.
And following that, they're also looking for a place that will offer them a variety of training scenarios. So they found Kenya had most of those. In Kenya, you do mountain training, you do jungle training, you do desert training. So they made a decision at that time that they will actually close most of their training institutions around the world and just bring everything to Kenya. So it's a big, big training camp over there in Nanyuki.
Did you teach anybody to ride camels?
No, stay away. Camel.
No?
So the British Army has got Kenya as a big training ground for their troops, which is going to undo terrorism. And it's just a training.
It's just purely military.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we look at groups like, obviously, a hot offer is Al-Shabaab. And we look at the work that has been done with some of these collaborative efforts. I think of groups like AMISOM, who then, in Somalia, specifically for this, I mean, with other things, of course, terrorism was one of the things that they, hoped to counter. And it was joint. AMISOM is joint.
It is,
Do we see the success of such joint collaboration over time?
And unfortunately for AMISOM has not been successful for various reasons. They have just put in a new mission, ASMA, the special mission in January for Somalia. Now, these missions that are mandated to fight terrorism are not successful, in my opinion, because of their mandate, the UN mandate. The traditional peacekeeping missions for the UN is you have a peace agreement between two parties and conditions for peace, keeping peace.
Yeah.
You bring in a peacekeeping force, separate the two belligerents, implement the agreement, have elections, form a government, then get out.
Nice.
And they wear blue berets. They're not armed.
Yeah.
Now we have gone under what we call Chapter 7 of the UN, which is a peace enforcement. And I'm not even sure whether it's what they're using in Somalia or even in the Sahel, which is, there's no agreement, so you go in to enforce peace.
Yes.
Okay? If there are two armies fighting, that's easy. Or easier, it's not easier. But if you're fighting an enemy you're not seeing, who's not out in the streets, they're not coming in groups, and it becomes very, very difficult to win that war. They just mix in the population, and they wait until you're tired and you go in their back.
Yeah.
So I don't see it working as a model of peacekeeping operations, but we'll wait and see.
I need to take you back. You said you trained and you flew the F-5, and it's still our jet fighter pilot, our fighter plane. Why have we not transitioned to an F-16 Tomcat and all those things that sound so nice?
The sound.
Oh, right. Okay, fine. Nobody decided to sell us the MiGs or anything like that. We stuck with the F, which is fine, and that keeps our relationships open with the US, which is okay. But why are we not transitioned from the F-5?
I'll give you just one figure. The F-35.
Okay.
Which is the 5th generation fighter.
Yeah.
The latest from America. I'll not even give you the cost of acquiring one.
So it's not something you just go and say, listen, we have changed.
I'll just give you one figure.
Yes.
The cost of flying the F-35 for 1 hour is $40,000.
Are you kidding?
No.
Flying it.
Yeah, 1 hour.
For 1 hour.
Yeah.
$40,000. Okay.
Okay.
Puts things. How much is it to fly an F5 for 1 hour?
It's probably it's less than that, maybe just over $1,000. I think it's about $1,500 or $2,000. Still.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of the African continent, I don't think anybody will be getting any F-35 anytime soon.
Well, besides the fact that you can't get it, you can't afford it, they won't tell it to you.
They won't.
No.
Okay. But in terms of, our Air Force, let's look at outside of the Air Force. In terms of terrorism, anti-terrorism efforts, based on what you know, at least the knowledge you have, who on the continent stands out probably as a gold standard in terms of people who've got it absolutely spot on right?
I can't think of any, even globally.
Really?
Yeah.
We're all in the same boat?
We're all in the same boat.
Okay.
What are the wrongs that are being done?
Because it's not a defined enemy. Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, it's not a defined enemy. It's what we call a non-state actor. It could be an individual. It could be one of these guys here. as we're talking here, they go away.
Suspicious.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, in the absence of a defined enemy, it's very difficult to plan how to defeat that enemy. And they're always fleeting. They're always changing tactics. Whoever thought that somebody will take an airplane full of passengers and go smack a building? Yeah?
True.
Unimaginable.
So those kind of things, you can. Yeah, nobody is fully defended against.
So is the position then to take, if you don't have a defined enemy and nobody is fully prepared to deal with the threat or the after effects of terrorism, is the only way then to have joint collaboration to be able to fight this unseen thing?
Joint collaborations like we have just enhance your capability to fight those people, but the onus is on you, because you'll be the first person to defend. If the terrorist attack now, the Americans are not going to be here. So you must then put measures in place. First of all, those things we talked about, collection of information.
Yes.
Yeah, in place. But let's go back to the cause of terrorism. This may be where we need to start. What causes terrorism? What turns somebody into a terrorist?
Radicalization.
Why am I being radicalized?
Basically, being taken advantage for in terms of somebody. Well, it's disenfranchisement.
Somebody's planted an idea in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, but if
the systems are not working, for example,
why should I listen to somebody planting my idea in my head?
Oh, because I'm disgruntled, isn't it? There's a promise of something that
could be. But I need also to be dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Yes,
there's something
I'm disgruntled about.
There is a gap that is being filled by the promise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to start there.
Okay.
And fill those gaps instead of the other guy coming to fill those gaps.
Right.
Yeah.
So if a young man is growing up in whatever area of Kenya today, or in northern Nigeria, or any part of the Sahel, is disenfranchised because of what are the things that we face? Hunger, poverty, unemployment. You give him something to do. You put a 1 meal in his belly and some change to spend.
Let him feel that is part of the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's your slave, isn't he?
Okay. But
I see what you.
I see what you're saying.
Or she.
Yeah. For the other side is filling that gap that exists in your social setup. So then it's very easy to radicalize that person.
Sure.
Because they already have an issue with the way you treat them, the way they don't feel like part of the community.
Okay. But any of them, let me answer, might sound a bit of a strange question, but then there's they might have homegrown ones in countries that are probably a bit more developed, but Africa, do we have homegrown?
Oh, yes.
Homegrown terrorists, as in somebody who's...
There's no homegrown terrorists.
That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
What you have is a disgruntled individual, causing that disgruntlement. It could be anything.
More often than not, it's government. I have an issue with the government.
I have an issue with the government.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm part of this community. Yeah. So, if somebody else comes and tells you, you know what, come on this side, I'll fulfill your needs.
But that person, that person who's a sponsor for that,
he has got other motives.
He's got that's what I was going to say.
He's got other motives, but he wants to use you.
Yeah, because he's not going to get his hands dirty.
Yes,
he or she. Sorry, we need to be gender sensitive. They're not going to get their hands dirty.
Yeah, and of course you have the extreme. Like if you go kill, the jihadists, they'll kill for sake of religion.
Okay,
but most cases is social. Lack of something, not feeling part of go. Feeling isolated.
Okay. And then I was trying to remember, we had a conversation in a previous episode where we were talking about the aspect of, it'll come to me just now, not the leadership conversation. We're looking at
Foreign policy.
There's a foreign policy aspect, yes. In terms of how that foreign policy, in terms of, okay, fine, if I decide that today I'm a darling and I say, okay, fine, listen, we need a bit more either foreign aid or whatever the case may be, not so much on the joint military exercises. How do we then say, okay, fine, we are happy to do the joint military exercises, but then how do we then say we'd also want to look at development beyond? So, for example, why would we not then say that Africa can be the continent that will be producing F5s instead of having to import them or having to buy them? There's nothing to suggest we can't do that. But all we do is we do joint military exercise, which is fine, and we get training and education and what have you. But then where would you then be saying, okay, fine, you know what? We want to make our own planes.
That's more of an economic thing. The only thing I can say about that is that it will create jobs. And therefore your youth will be employed. Reducing the possibilities of disgruntlement, and therefore the chance of them being radicalized.
Okay.
But the actual thing is it's about security. And security, people's security, cannot be separated from development.
Yes.
So, if you want to reduce all these things, you must develop your country. So that brings us back to governance.
Yes.
So all these things are tied up. Providing security for the people means investing in infrastructure.
Yeah.
Creating jobs. That's development.
Okay.
To achieve that, it involves the whole, not just Kenya. You must look at the whole region. There's no point in
True.
developing Nairobi and
And then
Kenya,
have nothing, yeah.
and the rest is underdeveloped. So it has a regional aspect,
Right.
eventually a global aspect.
Okay.
So, and that's why you require cooperation also to stop.
I know this is panel 54, and I keep, for this particular subject, I keep coming back to Kenya. I'm going to ask this question now. What made us a soft target? Was it our alliance with the United States?
Okay.
Yeah. Why? Nobody hit Tanzania.
No,
Nobody hit Uganda.
Al-Shabaab bombing was...
Well, not at this level.
No, it was the same.
1998?
All the three embassies were hit. So it's only that Nairobi was the biggest.
That was the biggest, yeah.
But all the three embassies were hit. So, the alliances with other countries might make you an enemy of a certain group. Like our alliances with, say, Israel. In fact, most of the targets that are hit here are concerned with Israel, from Norfolk.
Yeah.
Norfolk is an Israeli-owned hotel. Then we have the one somewhere in Mombasa, also a place where Israelis tourists went to. So the fact that you have Israelis here or visiting tourists or whatever from Israel makes you a target by Al-Shabaab.
Okay.
Because that is a defined target for them. That is why you need to bolster security so that those tourists who come here feel secure and they're not vulnerable to be attacked by. They don't think they're not afraid of being attacked by terrorists.
Okay.
So it's a web. It's a complicated web.
So let me ask a question, because I think one of the things that I believe the United States did was pull out a lot of bases around the world the beginning of this year. Kenya was spared. Again, I'm coming back to the Kenya. Kenya was spared because of our strategic importance.
Yes.
Yeah. If we do not have the strategic importance, I mean, where would we then be?
In terms of our relationship with America.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, probably they will not have a base here. But they're here for a reason. It's not for us. It is for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have chosen Kenya for various reasons. One they will always say is because Kenya is a steady country, it's democratic.
Yeah.
We have got the same values. The other reason they'll say is it's our geographical positioning. Yeah. And then we have infrastructure, we have not only infrastructure, we also have human resources.
Yes.
Yeah. Here that can help them. They don't have to bring everybody here.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that, they consider before they. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, proximity to their areas of interest, which will be for here is the Middle East.
Does Kenya? Well, I mean, looking at collaboration over the last 2 decades, does Kenya or any other country, if we look especially in sub-Saharan Africa, across the continent, do we have a calling card for these relations when it comes to collaborative efforts against terrorism or any kind of other joint effort that was needed? We saw some joint effort, maybe late in the game during Rwanda. You're well versed with that. What happens in different parts of West Africa? What happens in Kenya? Do African nations have a calling card when it comes to collaborative efforts to say, hey guys, stuff is looking a little bit thick. How about we buddy up on this and stamp this thing out?
Yes, I think they do. They do. Bilateral, yeah.
Who's on the other end of the phone?
Who's the other end of the phone?
Yeah.
There are so many channels of communication. It could be foreign affairs. It could be the heads of states.
What countries are we calling? I mean, essentially, the question is here, who is your relational partner, or do we have several across board now? Looking at what happened in the 80s, whereby you didn't really need a force against terrorism, and here you are going towards the 90s into the 2000s, and perhaps there's a little bit more that's necessary for collaborative effort. Who are the countries that African nations are calling on, essentially?
I don't know about other nations. What I know is that Kenya has one big ally in Kenya when it comes to security is America.
Okay.
That one is
standard.
They could call in the British if they needed, but I know for sure that with America there's a call card. And America has also what we call the Africa Command.
Yes.
Which we fall under. So those are easier people to call.
What do you see as the future for these kind of collaborative efforts? We can't say whether we'll see the dulling down of terrorism across continent or across the world, but what would you say would be the future for these collaborative efforts, for these joint relations, when it comes to essentially keeping the peace?
I think they should grow. They should grow. If you look at what is happening,
does it have a capacity to grow? As in terms of how many?
If you look at the situation in the Sahel now, what makes it difficult to work to deal with is those very porous borders, huge countries with porous. So these guys are moving from one country to another on their camels. So you need cooperation in such an arena. Now that they there's even a proposal in the Sahel to engage Interpol, because if somebody commits a crime here, takes off in his camel and goes across to the other side, then you need an international police force to go and arrest them. So collaboration, I think, in my opinion, will grow, and it should.
Okay. Well, let's see. I mean, there's a conversation we need to have after this. Eventually, we need to expand this a bit more because there's a lot of stuff that we still need to unpack. But I'd like you to leave us your parting shot. And for me, that would be a particular story I know about you.
You must tell us the story now.
He's going to.
Okay, here we go.
He's going to. He has to tell you the story.
It's on this. It's on tape. Okay, fine. It's been told many times.
No, it's okay. This is going to be a completed. Spinal 54 is not the same run-of-the-mill kind of podcast.
Anyway, this happened in 1982.
Just before, after the
November 26th. I remember the day very well.
Okay.
So this is what happened when President Moi had gone to Libya to hand over. He was chairman of AU. So he had gone to Libya to hand over to Gaddafi the chairmanship. And after the coup, the Air Force was grounded. The name was changed. We did not take part in any national celebration. That was in August. For about 3 months, as we were being re-employed. So that time, we had not been in the cockpits for about 3-4 months, so we just gone back into our cockpits, started going back to flying. And then we have President Moi is out of the country and is coming back. So we had been now cleared to fly. We were back in the air to go to meet him at the airport, at the border, and escort him into the country. It is something we used to do for him, for whatever reason. So we took off from Nanyuki, went to Lodwar. We spotted him. He was in I think 707. There was 4 of us, not 3. So, the rules are if you're going to formate on another airplane, you must get the captain's permission.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was Captain Civic. Our formation leader then asked him, got contact with him and told him, here, which was called the president. The guy said, hey, I don't have any such information. So see that. So we were forced to just trail them. And meanwhile, our formation leader was talking to DOD, and DOD was talking to OP. So they're waiting for permission to join on him. It was a raining day. So at some point, he starts descending as we approach Nakuru. He's descending, so we have to descend with him, but we're not join up to him. We got into cloud, so we pulled back. Anyway, at some point around Naivasha there, because we guys are formation in 3. There's one airplane, the leader, I'm here, and another guy is here. We're in close formation. And we break out of cloud, and then I look with my eye here. I see the president's aircraft. It was not far, very close there. I told the formation leader, hey, there's our target. So he decided that he's going to go. He wants to join on him quickly before we go back into cloud. But this is where I was. So when he broke into me, turned into me, I had to do something. I had to find space, empty space. So I went up. We were low speed, and it was technical. But what happened when I go up, I lost, my aircraft stalled basically. Yeah. So I lost control of the airplane. So I was forced to eject. So I ejected in cloud. Airplane crashed, not too far from where I landed. So and I was in cloud for a long time. Am I going up? Am I coming? Anyway, when I broke cloud, I was like maybe 100 feet above cloud. I touched ground, and the people were outside looking up because I had the bang. Well, the airplane just crashed. So when I touched ground, there's a ritual you go through. You put your parachute, you release your parachute because it's dangerous to keep it on. If there's wind, you'll be dragged into something. So I went through everything, checked myself, no broken parts. My helmet was gone. So, and these guys they are now, I'm not even paying attention. They are on their knees. So people in the village would pray. So then I smoked those days, so I went into my sleeve pocket, pulled out my cigarettes, and I lit a cigarette. Then I had, see you, yeah. So I didn't even pay attention. There was a teacher among those guys. He came to approach me and he asked me what was happening. I asked him, where am I? I told him, no, I said, I have got a Kaiser police station here. So I went. So when the guys went, the investigators went, I left. I didn't even know. They were told, sisi tulisikia poromoko. Tukatoka. Tukiangalia juu tukaona mtu anakuja na tukasema yes wame. So when they were on their knees, they were praying.
Oh, Jesus. No, they weren't. And you were Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. but it was quite a funny. In June that year, the MP for that area was a lady called Prophetess Yambura or something. These are their Corinos. She had told them Jesus was coming this year. They'd even dug tunnels.
Wow.
They were waiting for Jesus. So this thing happened. This is what was prophesied.
And Jesus stood up and lit a cigarette and walked away.
That's Jesus.
Jesus was true.
That's the story in short.
You've been on Panel 54, where we rethink the world one African perspective at a time.
If it made you pause, reflect, or reframe, share it, start a conversation, and tag us in.
Don't forget you can find us on our social media handle at Panel54Pod or your favorite streaming platform on Android or Apple. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a single episode.
Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep the lens clean.
Panel 54, a global perspective through an African lens.